Chaos Theory by Tessa Crowley. Brought to you by Leanne Audio. Chapter 4. Make tea, not war. Monty Python. After his first potions class, as the other students make their way out, he heads up to the front of the room, books under one arm. Professor Snape looks up from his notes and, after double-checking to make sure they're alone, offers a small smile. "Good first class," Draco says. "You weren't paying attention," Professor Snape returns. "Well, I assume it was good. You're a very competent teacher." He imagines that Professor Snape would be more upset by the indirect admission he wasn't paying attention if either of them were the least bit concerned with Draco's academic performance. "I suppose I should just take that as a compliment and leave it be." "That would be wise. I have a free block up next." Professor Snape raises an eyebrow. When he doesn't take the bait, Draco says, "Tea?" "This is depressing," Professor Snape says. "In what way?" "Have you not met anyone your own age yet? It's been a week. I'd have thought you'd at least make a few friendly acquaintances." "I've managed to avoid learning a single name or face, thanks for asking. What would I want with acquaintances anyway? Children are useless." "I marvel that you can say these things without a trace of irony." Professor Snape closes his folio of lesson plans, and together they walk toward the back of the classroom, through the door leading into his office. "You're hardly one to talk," Draco says. "According to Castle gossip, you're the most miserly and misanthropic son of a bitch in the British Isles. If it's depressing that a first year isn't making friends, it must be horrifying that the same can be said of a tenured professor." "Careful," he answers tersely, as Draco sits down opposite his desk and Professor Snape goes to put the kettle over the fire. "I'm just saying, we might as well find some solidarity in our mutual disdain for people." Professor Snape doesn't answer. Draco's gaze wanders over the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lining the back wall, across the mixed selection of aging magical potions tomes and modern Muggle chemistry textbooks. The whole office is a bit dreary, Draco thinks, but then Professor Snape has always valued function over form. "Class is going well?" Draco asks. Professor Snape sinks into his desk chair. The new crop of students is as disappointing as ever. "In fairness, you two have rather impossible standards." "Harry Potter started this year." Draco makes a small sound of surprise. "Did he? I didn't know." Though, now that he thinks about it, he would be about Draco's age. "Looks exactly like his father," Professor Snape says. And Draco can't help but raise an eyebrow at the startling amount of venom in his voice. "Acts like him, too, I'm sure. Vile little creature. It's the Marauders all over again." Draco doesn't know what the Marauders are, but he can glean enough by context. "Careful, Professor. To the unbiased observer, it sounds like you're judging someone by the sins of their father." "And you're an unbiased observer, are you?" "Well, I've never met Harry Potter or his father, so I should think I'm less biased than you. Just try not to make him too miserable is my general point." Professor Snape sneers, and Draco knows he's struck a nerve, which can only mean one thing. "Oh, Merlin," Draco says. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing." "Did you go 20 questions on him? That's what you do to me when you're in a mood." The kettle whistles and Professor Snape goes to start the tea without answering, which is not a good sign. "You did, didn't you?" He had his father's same vacant, manic stare. It was annoying. "He's 11 years old." "Change the subject," Professor Snape says, and even though he sounds angry, Draco knows that he's made his point, and that Professor Snape will back off. Good thing, too. Draco knows that Professor Snape has quite a sociopathic streak in him, and sometimes doesn't know when to stop. They're silent for a while until eventually Professor Snape comes back over with 2 cups of tea, the good kind, brewed with loose leaves, Kalon by the smell. Draco takes a small sip. It's just as well he wants to change the subject. Really, Draco only came here for one reason. "So," he says as Professor Snape sinks back into his chair, "what's in the 3rd floor corridor?" Professor Snape nearly chokes on his tea. It's a very telling reaction. "No," he says. "But no," he repeats. "No, Draco, absolutely not. We are not talking about this. Strictly speaking, saying we aren't talking about it is still talking about it. Stop." "Well, it's hardly my fault the headmaster went and made such a ridiculous announcement at the feast. Avoid the 3rd floor corridor if you don't want to die. Indeed. Why not just ward it through a perception filter? It's like he wants us to be curious." "You are asking about something that is far larger than you know, Draco, and a great deal more dangerous. The headmaster's warning about death was not misplaced. Leave it alone." "But leave it alone." Draco throws his head back, letting out his best aggrieved sigh, just to drive home how completely unreasonable Professor Snape is being. "What else am I supposed to do to keep myself occupied in this intellectual wasteland?" "Only you could think of a school as an intellectual wasteland," Professor Snape says. Draco doesn't need to look to know that he's eyeing him, unsure of Draco's intentions. "If you want something to do, try making some friends. It would be good for you." "Hypocrite. Drink your tea," he says, and Draco does.